Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. All right. Yep. J.J. McCarthy, he said it. This changes things quite a bit.
It's got to be America's team.
And Michael Penix, he was not good enough for the Vols, according to Jeremy Pruitt and his coaching staff. How'd that age? So we're going to get into these stories today. This one with J.J. McCarthy. Woo! Man, I was not expecting him to speak to this. But, he's all about freeing Harbaugh. So let's get into J.J. McCarthy. He has opened a can of worms. And this is on CBS by David Cobb. It says, J.J. McCarthy, team had to make it an even playing field versus Ohio State in the sign-stealing scandal. So he's pretty much coming out and saying Ohio State started it by stealing signs, so we just had to catch up. Oh, I don't think Ohio State's going to appreciate that very much.
Stop it. Get some help.
Said McCarthy fanned the flames of the program's sign-stealing scandal and its rivalry with Ohio State by suggesting the Wolverines were only trying to pace with the Buckeyes by engaging in a scheme that was ultimately deemed to violate it violates the Big Ten and it violates the NCAA.
Hello?
It says, as part of the explanation into the messages given to the team by Harbaugh, McCarthy alluded to the unfortunate sign-stealing scandal, adding that 80% of the teams in college football steal signs. It's just the thing about football, it's been around for years. We actually had to adapt because in 2020 or 19, when Ohio State was stealing our signs, which is legal, and they were doing it, we had to get up to the level they were at, and we had to make it an even playing field.
Oh, there they go. There they go.
So the answer was to bring in Connor Stalions, allegedly, and have him go around and send a bunch of people with cell phones to forward scout and record all the plays of other teams that you were going to play. That's, I guess you could catch up pretty quickly that way. I got to question whether that defense is going to hold.
Does the defense's case hold water?
No, the defense is wrong.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. I don't think it's going to hold water. He said, I just feel like it sucks. We do work our butts off. We do watch so much film and look for little tendencies, etc. And he talks about he doesn't like what the outside perception of what sign stealing is all about. And then it talks about the elaborate sign stealing scheme allegedly perpetrated by former Michigan staffer Connor Stalions. I'm kind of wondering if the players didn't go around and help them out with selling some of those used vacuum cleaners.
I said don't disturb you. I'm cleaning my room.
This changes things. This really does for me. I was willing to give the players the benefit of a doubt because I was thinking, well, they probably were slightly aware of what was going on, but they just figured these are the coaches. This is what they do. Our job's to follow what they say. It appears they were fully aware of what's going on. Now, did they know the extent of it? I don't know. Based on this, it almost feels like they kind of did. This changes things for me. It really does. I was willing to give the players benefit of a doubt, and I was even willing to say, hey, you know what? Maybe Harbaugh wasn't aware of it to the extent and that he was maybe looking the other way or plausible deniability. But if your quarterback knows about it, I don't think this helps Jim Harbaugh at all, not in the slightest. And I think the NCAA is going to want to get to the bottom of this. I don't think this helps his case, not in the slightest. I'm really surprised McCarthy spoke to this. I don't think this was the time for it at all. And it really kind of changes the course of conversation about this on a significant basis. And I know I'm going to take a bunch of grief from the Michigan fans. I'm trying to be somewhat neutral about this. I'm an SEC guy. But this just doesn't smell right. It really doesn't. And all of a sudden, Ohio State's been doing that for 15 years prior. They won like 14 out of 15 years. They won the previous 8 years prior to this little streak that Michigan's been on. Then all of a sudden, Connor Stalions shows up, and Michigan starts whooping up on Ohio State. This doesn't make any sense. So I question this. I really do. This does not pass the smell test, not at all. And it talks about how the NCAA rules do not allow in-person scouting. They certainly don't allow you to record them. And it also talks about Connor Stalions was actually spotted at the Rose Bowl game. Now, granted, I don't think that's that big a deal. And this is Nicole Arbach. She says, I can confirm that Connor Stalions was indeed at the Rose Bowl per multiple reports. Yeah, right there. That appears to be him. So let's go blue. He doesn't have his blue sunglasses on. So that makes it less suspicious. But here's what that also tells me. Don't expect him to cooperate with the NCAA Look, this guy wrote a 600-page manifesto about Michigan football and how he's going to take it over and dominate, which, look, you got to give him a lot of credit for the first 2.5 years. They went from 69% winning percentage to over 90%. That's a pretty good improvement. So this is not a guy I think is going to be cooperative and throw Michigan under the bus. I don't think he cares. He's just like, you know what? He's thinking, I'll just go down with the ship myself and keep all the secrets, because why should I help the NCAA and hurt my team? I mean, he's all in on Michigan, obviously. And on some level, I kind of respect that on some level. Not all levels, so don't get it twisted. But, hey, you know, at least he's loyal. Now we got to talk about Michael Penix Jr. He was a commit to the Vols and wanted to stick with the Vols even when they changed coaches from Butch Jones, who had recruited him, to Jeremy Pruitt. He just wanted to be a Vol. He had kind of fallen in love with the university, and he was going to stick with it. And let's get into this story. This is by Evan Crowell on Volunteer Country. It says, Tennessee fans reminded of Michael Penix Jr.'s saga during college football playoff. It says, Penix was a longtime commit to the Tennessee Vols. Butch Jones was fired. They hired Jeremy Pruitt shortly after the announcement. Of course, that was a whole nightmare scenario. The athletic director got fired on a plane ride back from Washington. It was a huge mess. And then Fulmer came in at the last minute, and nobody wanted to take the job. And they wound up hiring Jeremy Pruitt, who on paper looked great. And nobody could understand why he'd never been a head coach. He'd had the number one defense at Florida State, Georgia, Alabama. Everywhere he went, defenses just flourished. And he is a very good defensive coordinator, no doubt, and a very good evaluator of talent, but not on the offensive side of the ball, obviously. Just on defense, I guess. Said shortly after the announcement of Pruitt's hiring, Penix Jr. took to social media to inform Tennessee fans that the new coaching staff had made it clear that he was not wanted in Knoxville, Tennessee, which occurred a few short days before National Signing Day. And he said, I would like to thank the previous coaches at the University of Tennessee and the fans, but after conversations with the new staff, it seems that that's not the place that I'm being wanted. So at this time, I announced that I've decommitted from Tennessee and will reopen my recruitment, et cetera, et cetera. He signed with Indiana, where he actually, look, he was balling out at Indiana, but he kept getting hurt. He actually had 2 ACL injuries, and he also had a shoulder injury or 2. So he was really showing out at Indiana. He wound up transferring to Washington because I believe one of the coordinators was there as well that believed in him. And he's been relatively injury-free the last couple of years and played great. He's a heck of a player. If you watched him in that game against Texas, he was phenomenal. He threw for like over 400 yards. He was like a magic man out there. And there are players like that. They just, they got the gift. And here's the thing. I'm not mad about him not being here at UT because, look, he might have had multiple injuries and transferred out. Also, we had Hendon Hooker the last 2 years or previous 2 years, 21 and 22. There's no way he'd have played any better than that. There's just not. Now, we might have had him this year, which would have been nice, but honestly, you just never know about something like that. And I couldn't be more happy with Nico going into the next 2 years. I mean, we've got the ideal guy for our offense, so I'm real pleased about that. And I hope Michael has a great game. And, a lot of people are going to be rooting for Washington. I can go ahead and tell you that because Michigan is not a beloved team by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people feel like they got there unethically and that, even though they are winning now, would they be winning to this level had they not had those couple of years where they supposedly had the signs? And that helped them with recruiting. It helped them with keeping good players on the team that didn't transfer out because they wanted to win a natty. I mean, a lot of that goes into this. So I'm fine with it long term. Look, Pruitt was kind of a disaster, honestly. And I'm less mad at him over the $60,000 that he paid out, especially in NIL money today. But look, it got us hammered. 25 scholarships we lost. We're still paying for that. $12 million fine and 2 years of having the NCAA over our head. But you know what? We got Heupel now. We've had really 3 nice years, really good years, in my opinion, based on what he had to work with. And now we've got Nico going in next year. And I think 2024 is going to be fantastic. I couldn't be more excited about the 12-team playoff. So look, I hope Michael plays a great game, and I wish him the best. Sorry he didn't get to play for the Vols. I know he wanted to. And it wasn't really Pruitt. Actually, it was the offensive coordinator that didn't want him, that Helton guy. So Pruitt would have been fine with him, I think. But, what did Pruitt know about offense? He knew how to stop offenses. I just don't know if he knew how to run one. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover my Vols, the SEC, all these big stories that I like to cover. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit this little button. Costs you nothing, and it helps me out. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.